Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James. Here we like to explore the world of fountain pens, ink, and paper, and that's what we're going to do today. Pull up a seat and let's get started. This is Ancient Copper by Diamine. If you're not familiar with Diamine, they are a UK ink manufacturer with a terrific reputation, and this particular ink, which came out a few years ago, is one of the reasons why. This is a really fun ink, and I'm anxious to share it with you. So let's get started as we test the ink on several papers. We'll also do dry times and water test and a swatch and a chromatography where we can visually see what various colors make up this single ink. First up is kind of the core paper of my ink reviews. This is the Clairefontaine Grid Spiral, as you can see there. It's a coated paper, performs itself quite well among many different inks, and Ancient Copper is no exception. As you can see here, we get some nice shading, zero feathering, no issues on the other side, and it just looks really good on this bright white paper. Then we have a Ayush paper from India. This is an off-white paper, one that I really do like. It has a nice texture, and I don't know, my pens and inks tend to like this paper. And here you can see that it performed well here too. A little bit darker it seems like, but that may be that off-white nature of the paper. There is some shading, but there is no misbehavior on the other side. Rhodia paper, you might have one of these notebooks. And here too, nice shading, showing up kind of dark today and flowing well in that pen. The pen, by the way, is the Eureka Dodecagon with a medium nib. Just a fantastic pen from South Korea. And you can see there I've almost used up the latest fill of this ink. This pen and this ink, they really go together well. Back to the Rhodia paper, no issues on the other side. Then we have the Pen & Gear paper from India. This is the dot grid version in the spiral, and Diamine Ancient Copper. A little bit of shading, a little bit less than on the coated papers, but still definitely there. Good performance and a non-issue on the other side. Then we have our big box Vietnamese composition notebook. How did it do? Awesome. Really good shading on this paper. I think it looks great here, and there's no feathering whatsoever. Just really looks good. And nothing, no issues there either. Typical ghosting, but no bleed through to the other paper. Then a new addition to our lineup is that Ireful paper. And here too, good shading, maybe a little bit more than the last couple. Kind of bringing out the lighter, redder copper color of the ink more than some of the others. Still, no feathering, really good performance, that looks good. And just, I don't know if you can see it, there is just a tiny bit of sheen on this paper. I did not see that on the other papers, but definitely it's there on the Ireful paper. Now, similar to that Ireful is old school Tomoe River paper. You see a little bit of hints that there could be sheen in that swatch, but you don't see it until you get to the letters. And at the bottom of some of those letters, do you see it? And where there are crossovers, there is sheen on the Tomoe River as well. Really nice ink, great performance across the board. And even here on some inexpensive copy paper, you can see there's not bad feathering or anything. There is a rough edge. There's definitely a rough edge. So I'm going to say on some copy papers, you might even see feathering. I would pretty much guarantee that you're going to on some. This is Georgia Pacific 20 weight paper. And you just have rough edges, not like far out feathering. Maybe the most you see is at the bottom of that C where it's starting to reach out. Then on the other side you have what I would expect, which is some definite ghosting and just the beginning of those blotches of bleed through, but it wouldn't have come through and affected the next sheet. So really not a bad performance on the inexpensive copy paper. All right, now I didn't say anything at the beginning about the bottle, but let's talk bottle for a second. This is Diamine's larger bottle. It's 80 milliliters, and it's a big bottle, and it's good heavy glass. I like these bottles. It does have a nice wide mouth. It's certainly easier to use than their 30 milliliter bottles. What I do is I buy the 30, and if I really like an ink, then I go back and get this. I treat the 30s like they're the samples, you know? One of the things that I like about this bottle is that it does just have an English feel to it. And maybe that's not important to some people, but I don't know. There's something about it. It fits that this comes from the UK. There's no personality like that with a 30 milliliter bottle, but with the larger one, there is, and I like it. I also like that it's the perfect height to fit in the drawers of my little stand over here, and so I can put a chunk of these in a drawer and have no issues with it closing. And it's very stable when you put it down because of the width of the bottle. All right, let's do a Clairefontaine swatch here and see how it looks here. The first pass, you can really see where copper fits in the name on that first pass, I think especially. Probably should have filled that part of the paper in a little bit better so you could see that better. But here's our second pass. The reason we do 3 passes, I'm not the only one who does this obviously, is because it does help you see kind of the variation of shading that you're going to get. And usually it is reliably reflective of the way an ink shows shading on the page, but just bigger, easier to see. Now we'll let that dry while we do our dry times. Now this is a medium nib, so this will be good dry times for a medium nib with pretty decent wetness. So here's 5 seconds. Still quite wet, as it's going to be with most inks. And at 10 seconds, we're still, we're pretty wet. And at 30 seconds, we're getting drier, but we're not there yet at all. Let's try 60. All right, at 60 seconds, yeah, that's dry, no problem. So yeah, it might take a minute. Definitely closer to 60 seconds than to 30 before you need to change the page, it looks like. All right, let's look at chromatography. And first, let me just refresh some inks to your mind that we've reviewed here lately. Brilliant Brown, which is just a lovely orange, but not too brown. That one is very simple. There's not a lot going on there. That's orange. Then FPR Painted Desert, more going on. Dark brown, light brown, pink, and a little bit of gray-black down at the bottom. That one's interesting because you don't really get the impression of pink in using the ink, but it's definitely there. Then this one, look at the color that is in Ancient Copper. Now it is a more saturated ink, so you see more saturation in the chromatography as well. But it is interesting. You have not just a gray line at the bottom, you have a blue-gray line at the bottom, and then it goes into some pink, then that lightens up, and then some more pink, then red, orange, and brown, and everything here is just more dynamic than the other two. Again, not surprising. They're going for a brighter, more saturated color, and one that in nature, too, is a little more complicated. So, interesting little chromatography there. And for those of you who have asked, yes, I really am soon going to do a little DIY video. It won't take very long. This is really easy to do, but I am going to make that video. But before I can do that, we have to do a water fastness test. Now, to temper expectations, and I haven't done this with this ink, so I really don't know what the results will be. This is not advertised as a water-fast ink. The reason we do this test is to show why that matters, because if you're going to sign something where water fastness matters, where somebody can't remove your signature, then you need to know kind of the dynamics of typical fountain pen inks and why that would matter. The other thing is, if you write something and you accidentally spill something on it, or you get caught in the rain, or somebody bumps you at the coffee shop, will you be able to salvage your homework? Well, let's check this out and see. Whoop! Ha! Well, this is going to be a lot more water than usual. Apparently my thumb was just a little twitchy. Right. Let's see what damage we've done. I feel like it's going to be significant. We'll see. Hey, look at that. Well, what do you know? Contrary to other tests that I've done lately, this particular one is readable. I can see what's there. Can you see it? It says water test there. And do you see it? And I can see all of that. Still, you have places where so much ink was leached back off the paper that there's nothing left but the blue lines in a mess. So there's a chance that you won't see what you wrote. That's what that tells us. There is a chance that you won't see what you wrote. But if you get to it fast enough, at least in this test, and that was a significant amount of distilled water, we can actually see what I wrote. So that's good news. It might be salvageable. No guarantee, but it might be that you will be able to read what you wrote if it gets wet. All right, let's bottom line this, right? So it is an 80 milliliter bottle. It is $8.49 at a place like Cult Pens in the UK. That's where I got this bottle, and that was a great deal. I bought several inks at once that made the shipping worthwhile, and I still saved a good bit of money because in the US, it is twice that. Still reasonable for a bottle of ink this large, and if that's the only way you can get it, all right. Shop around, and it will still be worthwhile. But, if you live somewhere where it's that cheap, it's kind of a no-brainer. This is a dynamic, interesting ink that looks really great on all the different papers, performs quite well on all the different papers, has some shading on all of those papers, has sheen on some of the papers, and even survived the water fastness test to a degree. Not bad, not bad. What do you think about Ancient Copper? It's been about a while, so some of you have a definite impression of it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and God bless you, and have a wonderful week.